Welcome, everyone. It's Michael DeHaan, a co-founder and financial wellness leader at Quantum Leap Global. And I've got Deborah Price with me today. How are you, Deborah?
I'm wonderful, Michael. It's great to be here with you.
Thanks for making the time to sort of be with us. And I want to share, I've sort of known you, Deborah, for well over 3 years, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And I know we've got a similar background in regard to financial planning. You've been doing this sort of behavioural side around money, which sparked an interest with me about 4 years ago. So I was trying to work out a way to serve more Australians in regard to their beliefs and behaviours around money. And I ended up with an invite from you. I ended up doing the accreditation, and you facilitated that accreditation. You came over to Australia, and it was just an amazing sort of light bulb and opportunity for me to be of service more to all Australians in regard to their beliefs, their money story, their behaviours, and how that's showing up. So I wanted to just, I suppose, share that with you. You've also been the Money Coaching Institute, the CEO and co-founder for 23 years. So you're a pioneer really in the
been doing this a long time.
And you do a lot of that sort of facilitation and, as I said, that accreditation for money coaches globally, which is such a valuable thing to do.
Well, thank you for saying that. We think so too. And, you know, Michael, I remember that the particular workshop that we did together, you know, it was the first time that you were really deeply exposed to the work, and you know, you saw the impact just in that group with all of the coaches, and sort of what we learned and shared together, as you know, I think was the beginning of you implementing and doing such great work with people there in Australia. So, you know, it's always just my greatest vision and mission in life is to spread this work in the world. So I'm really grateful to you that you've sort of taken the ball and run with it. And I have no doubt you're really serving people very well. So just want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I was just intrigued. We've just recently sort of touched base, and a lot of what I'm seeing here around sort of couples and their relationship with money and the dynamics around that. I actually read your book and I really recommend it. I'll be talking about that later, but that's The Heart of Money. Strongly recommend anyone to read that, because it's really around that, creating that financial intimacy and the framework around money. So, and that's really what I want to talk about, really dig deep around what that looks like, what you see, and giving some tools or strategies for couples to have those safe conversations.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I've been working with couples for a very long time, and a lot of couples, you know, when they come in, it's fascinating, and you may have seen this too. I don't think people are very different from the US than they are in Australia or pretty much anywhere. But you have the subject of money that's so important. And, you know, in the early part of a relationship, everybody's in love, and, you know, you don't really want to go talk about those touchy subjects, right?
Yeah.
So in my experiences, couples don't talk about money very much in the beginning. And then these patterns start to become observed, and then next thing you know, you're in this relationship and you realize that you're not on the same page. And if you're the kind of person who is more of a warrior archetype, you might sort of become more insistent and say, look, we really need to be on the same page. We need to meet and work this out and whatever. Unfortunately, that's not what a lot of couples do, as you know. A lot of couples will end up having so much conflict about money that they avoid the subject. And one or both of them often will pull out of the engagement of the conversation entirely. It's sort of like, well, I'm down for the count. If we're ever going to do is fight about it, then I'm out. You won, right?
Right.
But the problem is that doesn't work, A, and what it creates is this gap in this field in the relationship for intimacy to begin to become diminished.
Yeah.
And it's because if we don't feel safe with our partner around money, it is very difficult to hold the space intimately, because money is a core survival issue, right?
Yeah.
And so that
Yeah.
safety it is an emotional safety, and it's a physical, and it's a spiritual safety. And if we feel our partner doesn't understand or won't work with us, then people begin to step back. And the more they step back, the bigger the opportunity for other kinds of issues to rise in the space of that chasm that has grown.
So, and that was a great share. So, and even the energy that came through in regard to when you were saying that. So, thank you for sharing that. But there seems to be, as I said, that sort of a lot of emotion around the money. So, even having the initial conversations, like, how do you do that in a way that you do feel safe? How do you maybe start the conversations or provide that framework of safety?
Well, I, as you know, teach a communication framework that is really pretty simple. And, for those of you who are listening, you can try this at home. And I can tell you that if you practice it pretty consistently, that it will help the conversation. And so we start with, if you don't mind, you and I can role play.
Yeah, by all means. Yep.
And I'll say, so Michael, my experience is that, whenever we talk about money, that you tend to get very judgmental. Instead of listening to me, you judge what I've done. And how that makes me feel is just that we're not on the same team. And I feel I'm not heard, I don't feel seen, and I don't feel safe. So, sweetie, what I really need from you is for you to listen to me. And if you don't agree with something that I've said or done or spent or whatever, then we need to just sit and calmly talk about it until we can reach some form of an agreement. So my request specifically is that we set a time aside where we can go and look at these outstanding money issues and just sit and calmly address them one by one. How do you feel about that?
So my feeling is that you've just provided a safe environment. So my feeling is that I'm more likely to be a part of that. Yeah. So that's a great, what I picked up before is a consistency in that.
Right. So you have to watch your tone.
Yeah.
Because, we were all raised in families where if anybody elevated or escalated their tone, immediately it's like duck and cover.
Yes. Yes.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
And so we have to watch our tone, and we have to kind of really make a conscious decision to show up in our heart first.
Yeah.
If you show up defended, you're going to get defense back.
Yeah.
And so we want to show up undefended with an open heart. We want to watch our tone, and we want to communicate really clearly without blame.
Yeah.
As soon as we walk into blame, it's like there's going to be a fire.
The emotions are heightened. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what would you say? I talk a lot around that sort of societal conditioning and norms, and this is generally speaking where women are sort of brought up to take on the care role and the male to be the provider. And I think that in itself creates a sort of a dependency model.
Absolutely. And it doesn't serve either, right?
So I'd be interested in seeing what you've seen in that, down that sort of pathway, and maybe some of the work that you've done to sort of bring that equality, bring that space again.
Exactly. So thanks for asking that, because I think it's a really important discussion. So we've been socialized to be a certain way, right? And so even in modern day families today, you will hear mothers or fathers and mothers say, "Oh, sweetheart, you don't really have to worry too much about that money thing, because you're just going to get married and probably have children, and you might get your MRS degree, but you're definitely not going to be in charge of the money, so don't worry about it."
Yeah.
I had a client who literally, her mother told her that not only should she not concern herself with money, but that she should also realize that that wasn't her job at all. And it's always the man's job to take care of you.
Yep.
And I'm like, and it has had an enormous effect. It has an enormous effect on anyone, because on one hand, we all want to please our parents. and we look up to them. They're our models, they're our messengers. They really are the ones that, we're recording everything when we're children. We have to understand a child's brain is just a recording device. It's recording everything.
Yeah.
So whatever you learn from your parents is going to stick to some degree, unless we have a lot of other evidence or experience to the contrary, right?
Yeah.
And that usually isn't the case. So, I don't know what it was like in your family, but my mother was very independent, and she really wanted me to be independent. So I grew up always believing I could be good at anything. But how many children are told, men or women or boys and girls, are told that they could do anything and that they could be supported? Now, I was told I could do anything, but I wasn't supported. So that was a whole nother challenge, right? Which is very common with people.
That's interesting. So, and how did that play out, not feeling supported? Because if you get told you could do anything but not acted on, is my way of looking at it. So what's that message that sort of resonates with you around that?
Well, the message was, oh, great, I'm really smart and really capable, but I'm going to have to figure it all out myself.
Right. Yeah.
And that can feel really challenging and daunting. And I do think that many people have the same feeling. It's like, boy, I'm on my own out here and I better figure it out. But think about it. How many people actually do figure it out? In our universe, as money coaches, not a lot.
Yeah.
And so we have to have so much compassion for people, right?
Yeah.
Our clients, when they come, they have issues and we are just here to presence for them. Yes, I understand. And here, let me help you understand why this happened. Let me help you understand how this happened and create that context and awareness so that people can step back and go, oh, okay, like you said in the beginning, now I understand. Right? Yeah. Now it starts to make sense. And it's not just that I'm broken or flawed. This happened to me.
Yes. Yeah.
And now you have a choice. You're either going to be a victim or a martyr or some other archetype, or you're going to stand in the space and say, this is not okay. I deserve better than this. And I'm going to get help and support to figure it out and do better. And we have to encourage people to do that, because if you look at where the world is today, us human beings, we're not faring very well financially, given our capacity, our potential.
And I think what you said before is it's that external work, because if you're looking, the internal work, if you're looking externally, it's just going to validate the programming. So if you've got a sort of a victim mindset, things will happen to you that will validate that. And internally, if you have that awareness and understand your journey with money and where that came from, then you start questioning it. Start back getting curious and just going, well, I choose something different. I choose a different pathway.
Right.
Myself and
exactly, Michael. And I'd be curious, in your experience, a lot of people will say, yes, I really want to choose it differently, but how do I do it? And people don't know. It's like there's a gap between where you are and where you want to be. But how do you fill that gap if you haven't had models that showed you, or you weren't given positive messages and you were not supported to grow in this area of your life? Yeah. I mean, we kind of have to reckon with the fact that our society has created a population of people who aren't faring well because they don't even know where to go to get help. Because it's not like your average therapist can do money issues. They're not trained in that area. So you have to kind of go to people who have a lot of experience and knowledge and expertise in this in order to begin to get the change. You're not going to, if you have a brain tumor, you're not going to go to a plumber, right? You really need to find somebody who knows what they're doing. And so that's certainly my opinion.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And I even see a bit of a flavor with business coaches morphing into that money space, the behavioral side around money. And I sort of would question that. And I've asked some questions around that, and it's very, in a sense, superficial with what they're doing, because you've got to have that deep understanding as I said, around their money story, their money types, what's in their subconscious, what is their programming, and then the shift. It's the hard bit because
Well, and exactly. And our work has got a very strong science aspect to it. So it's not just mindset work, which I personally don't like the term, because we're working on a lot more than mindset. We're working on patterns that are hardwired in the brain. So they're physiological and emotionally driven and largely subconscious, right? So when people don't know about that, they can often go into some territory that if they trip onto something a little deeper, they won't know what to do with it. And they can actually make a person feel bad or even worse than they felt when they got started. So I think it's very important that people do know that this is a specialty area of coaching. It's not life coaching, and it's certainly not business coaching, but there are some overlaps. And as you know, we do teach a behaviorally based business coaching course, and that is a complement to the standard money coaching program. But again, it's behavioral.
And it'd be great for you to sort of share a story around sort of a couple's journey, maybe where they started, because that will give a sense of, as I said, the storytelling side of it.
Yeah, I'd love to. I was just thinking today about a client of mine that I heard from recently after not connecting with them for a couple of years since the pandemic. And this was a couple who, the man, when he called me, basically said, look, I'm a financial advisor and I've been doing this for a really long time. And I'm pretty good at what I do, but I can't get my wife to listen to me. And my wife I love her. We've been together since high school, but she's a mess when it comes to money. And I have been trying to get her to conform. And as much as I love her, I'm almost done. He said, I'm just at the point where I'm angry and resentful that all the effort that I put into this it's not working.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, that's, thank you for sharing. And in my experience, there's usually more to that story than here. And I really need you both to be participating in order to get the full picture. But I really do get that you have a very high level of frustration, and that needs to be solved so that you can get your relationship back on track. So he agreed, the wife agreed, we started working together. They were a lovely, lovely couple. And as we started to work and they began to understand each other's history and how the patterns sort of evolved over a period of time, he began to see some of his own patterns differently. And she also didn't know a lot about his family history relative to money. So as they got to know each other in that way that they had never explored before, because we don't talk about money, right? Yeah. They started to, you could sense the sense of compassion that started to grow. Oh, I didn't know you had that experience, or, oh, I feel bad, I didn't, realize that.
Yes.
So that happens. So you start to grow compassion and a deeper understanding, which is fundamental, right?
Yeah.
And then as the process evolved, after about a month, maybe 3 weeks, actually, he came to the session. They were in different places at the time. He was in another room in the house. And he said, I just have to tell you in the beginning of the call that I have come to some really, deep understanding. And the first thing I want to say to my wife is, I'm so sorry. He said, I've been really contemplating this entire process, and I've seen my own stuff from a different lens. And he said, I've been projecting this on you, that it was you who was the problem. He goes, but the truth is, I'm the problem.
Wow.
But I couldn't see it before. And he said, and you, Deborah, you made really sure that you did not tell me that it was me. You let it become revealed what the problem was. You didn't have to tell me.
Yeah. And
he started to cry. And he walked then from there to another room, and he met with his wife, and he just said, I am so sorry, baby. I am so sorry that I've done this to you. And he realized he had become a tyrant.
Yeah.
He'd become a tyrant and he was just going to make her wrong. And part of what he needed to forgive himself for is that about 10 years earlier, his financial decisions put them in huge harm's way. And it took him 10 years to rebuild. And he was so emphatic on getting it right that he had become this really rigid, person who insisted on things being a certain way. But that was a compensation for his own shame.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
And so they both sat there and cried. And then, of course, I cried, and it turned into a love fest. And so, they continued to work with me for a while, but he sent me an email not long ago and just said, we really want to let you know how far we've come and the work that you did. And basically they said, if you want to send anybody to us for a testimony, we're happy to give it to you. So, often when people arrive in coaching for couples, what you're hearing is the symptom, not the real problem.
Yeah.
The real problem is something else. And if you can give people a safe space to explore that, things open up. And next thing you know, they're seeing everything through a different lens. And if they're truly open-hearted people who want to save their relationship, it will get better. It can't not get better. As long as people don't wait too long. One of the things I always feel bad for is by the time a couple sometimes gets into coaching, I'm sure you've seen this, Michael, there's not a lot of love left.
Yes.
The goodwill is, been, impacted, and that's problematic. I'm good, but I'm not a magician.
Yes.
Not that kind of magician anyway.
And I picked up on the word that really resonated with me around compassion.
Yeah.
And I think we can get either on autopilot or so busy in life that we sort of lose that. And I think globally, compassion is just such a strong word that we can have that for ourselves, but then have that shining out for all people.
Absolutely, Michael. And I know, I've worked with you and I know what a big heart you have. And you can't do this work if you don't have a lot of compassion and you have the capacity to not stay in a place of judgment. Money coaching is a judgment-free zone. If you're judging someone, you're in the wrong field.
Yes.
So because people make mistakes, we all make mistakes, but we don't need to be judged for them. We need to have somebody who can hold the space for us to understand how and why that happened, and then some guidance and support how to figure out not to go there again, right? Yeah.
And I was going to ask just to the end a key takeaway or something that you wanted to share. You might have just shared it then, which I thought was quite powerful. But is there one other sort of key message that you'd really want to share to this community?
Well, I would really like to say that we sometimes feel like, we are the way we are. And that in and of itself can be a defense mechanism, because if you haven't been seen or heard and you feel like you've got issues and you don't really feel people understand you, sometimes we just sort of go, well, it's futile. This is how it is. And I just want people out there to know nothing has to be just the way it is. Sometimes, especially when it's about ourselves, we need to recognize that the turning point in the fork in the road is the one where you say, I am worthy of more, and I will find the help and support that I need until I overcome this, and I will not stop, because I am worthy and I deserve it, and the truth is we all deserve it.
Yes.
So this acceptance of things, just this is who I am, is a way of actually sabotaging ourselves, because if it's not working for you, it is not going to work for you any better later. So the sooner we begin moving toward a solution and, go call Michael and get his help and his advice. He can help you. Believe me, I know he can. And when you do that, your whole life changes. Everything changes. So we have a lot to gain and very little to lose by engaging in finding that support.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's a great message to put out there, because I think one of the things that sort of resonates with us is that living that life of joy and abundance, which everyone deserves. So,
Absolutely.
so doing the work there and sort of going down that pathway with people that can hold your hand down that pathway. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your wisdom. As I said, I was looking forward to the interview. I know that we could talk for hours.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's really been my pleasure, and I wish you the best in all of the work that you're doing. And for those of you who know Michael, or if you don't know him, I can personally vouch for him. He's an amazing human being who really has a deep, I think, desire and capacity to help and be of service. So thank you for doing the work that you do.
And thank you for shining the light on this, the behavioural side. And as I said, the 3 years since I've gone down this pathway, it's been amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
All right, all the best. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.